Hello, friends. Today we are going to learn about the animals of the saltwater habitat. Last time we talked, we learned about the animals of freshwater habitats. So, what do you remember about freshwater habitats? What kind of animals live there? What kind of plants live there? What kind of adaptations do those plants and animals need to make to live there? Go ahead and share with someone in your house about the characteristics of freshwater habitat. All right, so if you remember, the climate or temperature of these freshwater habitats, they are going to vary, which means they are not going to stay the same. And the reason is because they are all over the world. There are freshwater habitats all over the world. Some might be near the equator, so they might be hot all year round. Some might be near us, so we're going to experience the 4 seasons, okay? Just depends on where it is. The water is coming from the rain or melting snow and ice. The ground, the land by the water's edge, is mostly covered with water, or it's going to be kind of muddy and squishy. The plants that live there are water lilies and cattails. And some animals that might live there could be turtles, beavers, rainbow trout, and other fish, bullfrogs and other frogs, ducks, geese, snakes, all sorts of animals, okay? Some adaptations would be that the water lily has large leaves that can float on the water's surface so that it can take up lots of sunlight. Fish have gills for breathing underwater. Frogs are amphibious, which means that they can live on land and off land, so in the water. Dragonflies have long wings for hovering to catch food. Ducks have waterproof feathers and large webbed feet for paddling. Okay, those are all adaptations of plants and animals that are near or in freshwater habitats. Today, you're going to learn about another water habitat, a saltwater habitat. You've already learned about one saltwater habitat when you studied the Arctic Ocean habitat, okay? So, remember we learned about the Arctic Ocean, and we know that oceans are salt water, meaning they have a lot of salt in them. For many years, only 4 oceans were recognized. The Arctic, the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the Indian are all saltwater habitats. Some time ago, the Southern Ocean, which lies along the coastline of Antarctica, was designated as the 5th ocean. So now there are 5 oceans, okay? We will see if we can point these out on a globe later in the lesson, okay? And then we're going to look at which ocean is closest to us and which one is farthest from us. But for now, I want you to listen carefully to find out more about the oceans and saltwater habitats. All right? Welcome to the last habitat we are going to explore. In the last read aloud, we explored freshwater habitats. Now we are going to learn about another kind of water habitat, a saltwater habitat. Saltwater habitats, as you could guess from their name, contains lots of salt. This means that we can't use their water for we can't use their salt water for drinking. Would you like to drink a cup of salty water? No, thanks. We've talked about salt in one of our CKLA units before, in the one we just had, actually. Do you remember what we learned about when we were talking about salt in the history of the Earth? That's right. Salt is a mineral that's found in the earth and can be used with food to help melt snow and ice in the winter and make roads safe. But we don't want to drink salt water, okay? Even if we do put salt on our food. It's hard to imagine, but more of the Earth's surface is covered with water than it is covered with land. Most of the water is salt water in oceans and in seas. Oceans are huge areas of salt water that stretch all around our planet, and they are home to almost half of the world's species of animals and millions of different plants. The water in the ocean comes from the rain as well as rivers and streams that flow into the ocean. Seas are smaller areas of salt water that have land around them or around part of them. I've come to the largest ocean, the Pacific, to show you a bit more about ocean habitats and the plants and animals that live in them. I'm standing on a beach looking out at the water. You can see that the waves are crashing onto the beach. This beach and any land that runs alongside the ocean is called the coastline or shoreline. Now, you may think that when you're standing on the land looking at the water, the land stops where the water starts. It certainly looks that way, but let me get my trusty scuba gear out and walk into the water. Now that I'm in here, I'm still standing on land. It's just that the land is under the water. The land slopes downward the further I go out into the water, which means the water is getting deeper and deeper. The interesting thing about the ocean floor, which is the land under the ocean water, is that it isn't flat. As on land, the earth beneath the ocean waters has both mountains and valleys. So, guys, when you think about the ocean floor, it's not flat. It's going to have these, what Rattenborough is calling a mountain. You see a high point, and it's going to have valleys, so a low point, and then it'll have like lower parts of it, okay? This makes some areas of the water in the ocean deeper than others. The Pacific Ocean is full of both plant and animal life, but not all of them share the same space. The conditions under the water are very different in various places. Some parts are deep and some parts are shallow. Shallow is the antonym or opposite of deep, in other words, not deep. There are cool parts of the ocean and there are warm parts. Some are dark and some are full of light. There are plants and animals in nearly every part of the ocean, some in the deep open waters far from the land, and some in the shallow waters closer to the shore. Some animals like turtles, jellyfish, and crabs live closer to the shore where it is shallower and warmer. Some animals like it better near the surface of the water, and others prefer to live down at the very bottom of the ocean on the deep ocean floor. They have all adapted to the conditions of their habitats. For instance, the animals that live in the deeper parts of the ocean have to adapt to the total darkness because the sun's light just can't reach that deep. Some fish, like the devilfish, have very large mouths and sharp teeth so that they can catch other prey as easily as possible. Other sea creatures have feelers on their bodies that help them feel wherever their food is. And some animals make their own light with special chemicals in their body, like when you carry a flashlight in the dark. I have now arrived at a special part of the saltwater habitat called the coral reef, which is made up of many tiny animals called corals. Corals stay in one place all their adult lives. They have stomachs and mouths and even skeletons. These skeletons can be on the inside or the outside of coral animals and are also called coral. When the coral animal dies, its skeleton remains in place and other coral animals will come and live on top of the old skeletons. The colony in which the coral lives is called a coral reef. So a coral reef has both coral animals and the skeletons of those animals. I'm here in the Pacific Ocean at a coral reef. In addition to the coral, there are many other kinds of animals around the reef. I found everything from fish to shellfish to octopi and sharks to snails and turtles. Octopi is the plural word for octopus. One octopus, but many octopi. Here is an animal that lies in and around its coral reef, and whose name most of you can probably guess based on its shape. It's a starfish. This starfish, also known as a sea star, has 5 arms, which make it look like a star. Although it is called a starfish, it's not actually a fish. It belongs to a group of animals that have spiny skin all over their bodies. If I touch the starfish, I can feel its body covered with tiny hard bumps that will help protect it from predators, such as sharks, manta rays, and other fish. What's a predator, guys? Yes, predators are animals that eat other animals. Starfish are also able to protect themselves in another amazing way. If an animal actually catches it and bites off one of the starfish's arms, the starfish will not die and it can still escape. In time, a new arm will grow back and replace the missing arm. When an animal regrows a missing body part, it's called regeneration. The starfish doesn't swim. It crawls very slowly along the ocean floor using hundreds of tiny tube feet. These feet attach to whatever the starfish is crawling over. As it crawls along the floor, the starfish is always on the lookout for food. This starfish's prey include fish, snails, clams, oysters, and crabs. Here is another animal that lives in salt water. This shellfish is called a lobster. Lobsters live in the ocean floor in openings between rocks. Their hard shells stop most other animals from trying to eat them. Lobsters have many legs that they use for crawling about, and they use antennae on their head to feel their way along the murky ocean floor. I have to watch out for lobster claws. They are called pinchers, and they are very strong. The lobster uses them to defend itself against prey and to catch and crush its own food. Lobsters are carnivores. They eat fish, worms, and other shellfish. I'm going to move out of the way before this lobster squeezes me. Looks like I moved right into the path of another predator. This is a hammerhead shark. If you take a look, you can see how the hammerhead got its name. Its head is very thick and it looks like a hammer from above with an eye and a nostril at each end. The hammerhead shark is a large fish, growing up to 20 feet long and weighing over 500 pounds. That's about the same weight as 10 first graders. Hammerheads like to live in warm waters, so they are mostly found near the coast where the waters are shallow and warmer. Sharks are carnivores. The hammerhead's favorite food is a fish called a ray, but it also likes to eat octopus, lobster, crab, and fish, including other sharks. Most sharks have smooth, slender bodies which help them swim fast. Their mouths are full of sharp teeth that help them catch their prey. Let's go back up to the surface. There's a sea animal I'm sure you'll want to see, but we have to travel farther out to sea, away from the coral reef and into the deeper water to see it. This amazing creature is the biggest animal in the world. It's a blue whale. Blue whales have blue-gray skin and are covered in a layer of blubber that helps keep them warm in the frigid ocean depths. Do you guys remember what blubber is? We learned about it when we were talking about the Arctic animals. You're right. Blubber is a layer of fat that some animals have under their skin to keep them warm. Blue whales are so big that they can weigh as much as 25 elephants. In fact, blue whales are the biggest animals known to have lived on Earth, and even bigger than dinosaurs. The blue whale spends all its time living in deep water, but unlike fish, it can't breathe underwater because it does not have gills. It needs to breathe air just like we do. The blue whale can hold its breath and stay under the water for as long as 30 minutes before eventually coming up for air. It breathes using blowholes on top of its head. Sometimes when it does come up for air, it breathes out a huge fountain of water from the blowholes. Blue whales are carnivores. They eat lots of food to build up their blubber during the summer months when the food is easy to find. Blue whales eat teeny tiny creatures called plankton. The plankton that blue whales eat are small shrimp-like shellfish that are about the size of your little finger. It's incredible to think that the biggest animal on Earth eats one of the smallest animals on Earth. The ocean is so huge and deep that we could spend all year looking at plants and animals that live there and still not see them all. In fact, there are still many living things in the ocean that people and adventurous rats have not even discovered yet. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the animals in the saltwater habitat in the Pacific Ocean. We still have one more stop to make on our worldwide tour of habitats. I'll see you next time. All right, friends. So, how is a saltwater habitat different than a freshwater habitat? Yeah, the water in a saltwater habitat contains salt, which is not suitable for people and animals to drink, meaning we wouldn't want to drink it. Saltwater habitats are in oceans, which are large bodies of water, whereas freshwater habitats are in much smaller bodies of water, like ponds, lakes, and rivers, and they don't contain as much salt. How would you describe the ocean floor? Is it flat and level, or does it go up and down? It goes up and down, or slopes, just like land outside of the oceans. It has mountains and valleys. Describe the types of animals that live in this saltwater habitat called the Pacific Ocean. Starfish, shaped like a star. Hammerhead shark. It has a head that is shaped like a hammer. Lobsters, which live on the ocean floor. Do the animals that you learned about live in the Arctic Ocean, like walruses and polar bears, do they also live in the Pacific Ocean? No. Why not? Yeah, because the climate and the weather conditions are different, okay? What kind of animal is this? What's this? Yeah, it's a starfish. Starfish eat fish, snails, clams, oysters, and crabs. Is the starfish a carnivore, omnivore, or herbivore? Carnivore. You heard about starfish and regeneration. What's regeneration, guys? Yeah, regeneration is when something can regrow parts of its body. How is the Pacific Ocean saltwater habitat similar to the Arctic Ocean saltwater habitat? They're both saltwater habitats, exactly. How are the two saltwater habitats different? Yeah, the Arctic Ocean is too cold for many creatures to live in for very long, and it's covered with lots of ice, whereas the Pacific Ocean has many animals, and the floor of the Pacific Ocean is total darkness, so animals have had to adapt to living there. So, in my read aloud, you heard me say, the conditions under the water are very different in various places. Some parts are deep and some are shallow. There are cool parts and there are warm parts. Some are dark and some are full of light. I want you all to say the word shallow. You can say it in a whisper voice, a mouse voice, a monster voice, a deep voice. Shallow, shallow, shallow. If something is shallow, that means it's not deep, okay? The water in the mud puddle is shallow. That's a way of using shallow in a sentence. Can you think of places where you've seen shallow water? Try to use the word shallow when you talk about it, okay? What's the word we've been talking about? That's right, shallow. The opposite or antonym of shallow is deep. Listen to the following examples. If I describe something that is shallow, I want you to say, that is shallow. If I describe something that is deep, I want you to say, that is deep. A cup of water. Yeah, that's shallow. Measuring down to the bottom of the ocean. That's deep, guys. The ocean is really, really deep. You can't go to the bottom of the ocean. It would take a while for you to do that. A baby pool. That is shallow, okay? What about a bathtub? That's also shallow. What about digging down to the inner core of the earth? That's deep. You're right. All right, guys. Head on over to Google Classroom and find out what your assignment is for today. I hope you had a great time learning about the animals of the saltwater habitat. We've got one more lesson, and then we'll start our review. Have a good day.